in the 1970s, Angela Davis was a famous black activist in America. She was the face of black power and feminism, and such an iconic figure that she is the only woman in history to have a song written about her by both the Beatles and the Rolling Stones. Or rather, one by John Lennon, Angela, and another by the Stones, Sweet Black Angel.
Angela, they put you in prison. Angela, they shut down your mind.
Got a sweet like an angel, got a pin-up girl, got a sweet like an angel.
Rita doesn't like the Beatles and the Stones, Lennon and Jagger. Angela Davis, the Sweet Black Angel. At one point, she was on the FBI's most wanted list after guns belonging to her were used by activists in an attack on a courtroom in which 4 people were killed. Angela spent a year in jail before being acquitted. She's a hardcore communist and feminist, educated at the notorious University of Frankfurt, and supported the Black Panther movement and their revolutionary approach to overthrowing white supremacy, expressing her views in this CBS interview.
You have to completely revolutionize the entire fabric of society. You have to overturn the economic structure where you have a few individuals who are in possession of the vast majority of the wealth in this country that's been produced by the majority of the people, and you have to destroy this political apparatus which, under the guise of revolutionary government, perpetrates the most incredible misery on the masses of people.
Yes, Angela Davis advocated for the overthrow of the entire system. She campaigned relentlessly against the Vietnam War with Jane Fonda there, saw the police as there merely to support white supremacy. That was her idea. She received the Lenin, as in Vladimir, not John, Peace Medal, set up critical resistance to abolish the police prison complex, became a professor of ethnic studies, spent the 80s wandering around the Soviet bloc, and so on and on. But at the heart of everything Angela Davis did and stood for and fought for was one central issue: race, as she explained in this interview, which was later included in the Black Power mixtape documentary.
I mean, that's why when someone asks me about violence, I just find it incredible. What it means is that the person who's asking that question has absolutely no idea what black people have gone through, what black people have experienced in this country since the time the first black person was kidnapped from the shores of Africa.
So she was advocating and was accused by many of advocating violence in the cause of race politics. She's written 10 books on race, class, gender, and the US prison system. Cultural Marxists don't come any, well, more Marxist than Angela Davis. Lydia Thorpe, eat your heart out. Angela Davis is 76 now, and it's not a stretch to call her the godmother of the Black Lives Matter and the defund the police movements, and the leading light in the radical racial politics that continue to tear America and, as we were discussing, increasingly Australia apart. So here's the thing: race. It's all in our genes, right? According to critical race theory, whites are born inherently bad, oppressors, evil, supremacists, and so on. Blacks, according to critical race theory, cannot be racist. They don't have a racist bone in their body, apparently. Well, that is what our kids are increasingly taught in schools. The pain of slavery, according to critical race theory, is so intense that it traverses the generations. The pain can never be assuaged, nor can the guilt ever be wiped out. We are the product of our genetic makeup. In America, according to critical race theorists, the founding fathers were inherently racist, as indeed were all those who sailed over on the Mayflower, evil colonial white Christian pilgrims who then set foot on American soil, polluting it with their presence and their oppressor ways, proclaiming some God-given right to invade the native lands as their own promised land in order to persecute the natives and perpetuate the evils of slavery. Yes, that is the sort of nonsense taught in schools to kids these days, and with appalling consequences, dividing children along racial lines. Indeed, this week, a young American white schoolboy spoke up about the appalling racism white kids are now subject to every day in his school. This is just a bit of what he had to say.
You must admit how uncomfortable it will be to be characterized just by your skin color on the first day of school and be thought that you were wrong just because of your skin color. So I will never forget the look one of my friends gave me from across the room as we were sitting there listening to this blatant bias being expressed in the so-called equity statement by the leader of our school. To be clear, I don't need you to tell me that I matter, but hearing the condolences given to other races and leaving just one race out, inevitably you'll start to feel like you've done something wrong. And in our principal's attempt to unify us, he instead created unwarranted boundaries and barriers between his students, pitting us against each other based on characteristics that we can't control.
The racists are now running rampant in our education system, denigrating innocent kids and making them feel guilty about the colour of their skin, making white kids feel guilt and shame about their heritage, and making black kids resentful about their heritage. As I said, Angela Davis is 76 now, having spent a lifetime attempting to tear down the foundations of the United States, a lifetime demonizing those evil white oppressors of the past, demanding whites atone for the injustices inflicted by their white ancestors onto her black ancestors. And then, last week, this happened.
Any idea what you're looking at? That is a list of the passengers on the Mayflower.
No, I can't believe this. No, my ancestors did not come here on the Mayflower.
Your ancestors came on the Mayflower.
No.
You are descended
No.
from one of the 101 people who sailed on the Mayflower.
Oof. That's a little bit too much to deal with right now.
Did you ever, in your wildest dreams, think that you may have descended from people who laid
Never.
the foundation
Never.
for this country?
Never.
Last week, Angela Davis discovered she is directly descended from the brave men and women who fled persecution for their religious beliefs to lay the foundations of America, one of the greatest countries on earth, and the land dedicated to the noblest ideals of freedom, equality, and justice. And she has spent her entire adult life trying to tear down those very same foundations that her ancestors sacrificed so much to build. Therein lies the bitter truth of racial politics. We are all made up of countless different genetic backgrounds, none of which makes us good or bad. But the hatred and poisonous obsession with race that consumes the left, that fuels the communists, the Marxists, the socialists, the activist classes, is the vilest and most destructive force of all in our modern lives. Identity politics, this obsession with race and gender and the other fake identity categories championed by the left, they themselves are the new tyranny, the tyranny of wokeness. It is the stupidity and ignorance of leftist ideology itself, so consumed by its own self-righteousness and fury that it cannot distinguish good from evil, cannot separate intentions from outcomes, cannot distinguish aspiration from failure. Instead, all it sees literally is the old which it hates versus the new which it embraces, black versus white, faddish, trendy new moralities versus the tried and tested moralities of tradition. What a tragedy for us all. How many of our own Indigenous activists, I wonder, obsessing about Invasion Day and First Nations and treaties and black sovereignty, are in fact themselves descended from the very individuals who so bravely and honourably, with the best and normally most moral intentions, pioneered and colonised these shores? How many Angelas are out there trying to tear down the Australia their ancestors so bravely built and fought for?